We're live now, yeah. Okay. First, I'd like to welcome everybody to the first Governance and Audit Committee meeting for this financial year. That includes everybody that may be watching live on the YouTube channels. COVID-19 has made a huge impact on all of us and the way that we work, including our cut committee meetings. I'd therefore like to thank all of the committee members for embracing not only these new ways of working, but also the technology that allows us to meet remotely as we are today. Do you have any apologies at all?
Councillor Arnold and Councillor Moorhead, Chair. Okay,
thank you. We're going to move on to item number 1, which is the minutes from the meeting held on the 3rd of February 2020. Is everyone happy to sign those as a true correct record? Yeah. We're going to move on to item 2, which is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest?
None received, Chair.
Okay. Item number 3, on to Ms. Audit Progress, pages 5 to 16, and Tom Mazars will present that report to the committee. Thank you, Tommy, if you can.
Thanks, Chair. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm going to assume everyone's had an opportunity to read the report, so I'll just pick out the main points. On page 7, we've set out the arrangements that we've put in place for our staff to work remotely. Whilst this has presented challenges, as it will have done obviously for the council as well, we've been able to successfully overcome those challenges, and we're continuing to deliver the services we need to our clients and complete the required work. At the bottom of page 7, we confirm that the interim work we completed prior to lockdown, we didn't highlight any particular issues that we need to bring to your attention. And then on page 8, we've confirmed the ongoing dialogue that we've been able to maintain with the council since lockdown. And continuing on page 8, as a result of the pandemic, members are probably aware that the deadlines for councils to produce draft accounts was moved from the end of May to the end of August, and then the deadline for the final audit of the accounts has moved from the end of July to the end of November. The council provided its draft accounts to us on the 1st of July, and our audit of them is currently in progress, and we'll report on the outcome of the audit to the meeting of the committee in September in our audit completion report. Just moving on to page 9, we've set out the fee for the audit, but we refer to increases in the level of work that we need to do on areas of material estimates, such as the valuation of pension liabilities and property, plant and equipment. And this impacts on all audit firms, and it's to meet the expectations of the regulator to provide more challenge in areas where judgment is exercised against big figures that appear in the accounts. That's expected to have an impact on audit fees going forward, but we'll discuss the impact with officers in due course, and any impact on fees would need to be subject to approval by PSAA, the public sector audit agency, who are involved in setting and agreeing fees. So we'll keep the committee up to date on anything arising from that. Just moving on to page 10, from there onwards we've summarised some recent publications that may be of interest to members, and that includes confirmation by public sector audit appointments of the audit fees for 2020-21. In the past you'll have been used to us issuing the audit fee letter, but PSAA have moved away from that this year and they've issued letters directly to you. And that confirms that your fee for 2021 is the same as 2019-20 at just under £86,000. And there's a link in the page that covers that to where the fees are shown. But in that letter that PSAA have issued, they've also referred to the expected impact of additional audit work, as I've just mentioned, around areas of significant estimates and the possibility that will result in additional fees. So as I said earlier, if there are any variations in fees required, we'll agree them with management first, and they're then subject to approval by PSAA. There's other publications in the rest of that report that might be of interest to members. There's brief summaries on each one and links to the detailed publications, Chair. So I don't intend going through that in any more detail. Obviously happy to take any comments or questions from members.
Okay, thank you, Tommy. If anybody has questions, if they use their electronic hand, and just a reminder, if anybody wants to, once they've finished the question, if they can lower the electronic hand when they're finished. Thank you. No questions. Okay, thank you. So can that audit progress report just be noted, please? So moving on to item 4, accounting policies for 2019-2020, statements of accounts, and that's on pages 17 to 42. And Kathy Kearns will present that report to the committee. If you take that away, please, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Each year I bring a report to this committee to ask for approval for the accounting policies that will be used in producing the annual statement of accounts. Usually I would bring this to the March meeting, but unfortunately it's been delayed because of the COVID outbreak. The accounting policies are based on SIPR's Code of Practice, and there have been no major changes this year to that code, so therefore there's been no major changes to the accounting policies that are proposed for 1920, and they remain unchanged from the ones that were approved by yourselves last year. As Tommy's just said, the government introduced new regulations which have delayed deadlines for the production of the accounts. And as planned, we did complete our draft statement of accounts by the 30th of June. And given that's only a month away from our original deadlines, I think that's a real achievement by all council officers. And the final version of the accounts following the conclusion of the audit, I'll be bringing to a later meeting for your approval. If I could ask any members to approve the recommendations on page 17, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Committee members, do we have any questions for Kathy at all? Happy to endorse those recommendations on page 17?
No hands at all, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for that. Item 5 is the investigation into payment fraud, pages 43 to 52, and James Duncan will present that report to the committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The identification of this fraud was reported to G&A Committee on the 2nd of September 2019. Due to the police investigation and the subsequent prosecution, we couldn't share the full details of the fraud and the subsequent review in case it impacted on the court case. That legal process has now been completed, and Can Kavanagh has been sentenced to 4 years imprisonment for stealing £260,000 from the council over an 11-year period. The report before you this afternoon now sets out the detail of fraud, the actions that have been taken, and the findings from the independent external review that was undertaken. The council has recovered £208,000, so 80% of the stolen money from Can Kavanagh's pension fund, in his attempting to recover the balance under the Proceeds of Crime Act, although that latter part is by no means guaranteed. Can Kavanagh used her senior position and detailed knowledge of the system to pay a personal account and then change the system records to cover her tracks. She specifically targeted low value, high volatile payment areas in adult social care and used her knowledge to identify specific payments that were due to be cancelled or cheques which had not been cashed. The fraud was uncovered by council officers when she tried to make a duplicate payment. Internal Audit undertook a full review, cross-checking information to ensure the scale, the scope and the methods of the fraud were fully understood. All 122 transactions were tracked and mapped through the various systems. This provided the detailed evidence for the police investigation, and those files were handed over to the police. Can was dismissed on the 15th of May 2019. And just to be clear, both the internal review and the police investigation found that Can Kavanagh acted alone and no other council employee was involved in the fraud. So alongside the detailed audit investigation, immediate actions were taken by management, including we contacted specialist IT system experts to write bespoke software to enable exception reporting to be undertaken on the payment system. And all that is it basically double checks and reconciles information that's in the data sources of the system. In the background, the bits you can't see, exception reporting goes in and tries to reconcile that. So quite complicated, and you do need system experts, but we have written those to specifically highlight anybody who was going in and changing things and then changing it back. We strengthened the management in the payments team, which assisted with the segregation of duties. We incorporated enhanced system controls in the new financial management system, which was implemented 1st of July, slightly delayed just because of COVID. We also refocused the work of internal audit to place more emphasis on key financial systems, and you'll see that from the next item on the agenda. And we also commissioned an external lessons learnt review from the industry experts Grant Thornton to provide an independent view of the actions taken and a review of other key systems to help identify control improvements. Section 5.2 of the report sets out Grant Thornton's key findings. Working with council officers, their report also made a number of specific recommendations that would improve and enhance the controls in these key systems. All of the substantive recommendations relating to control weaknesses identified during the Grant Thornton review have been implemented. There remain just 2 partially implemented recommendations, both related to best practice and system enhancements, and these were due to have been completed in the spring of this year, but have been delayed due to the disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, just to reassure members, controls continue to be fully in place in these areas, including up-to-date authorisation lists, established variation processes, and management checks. So the automating in the system was just going to enhance that. The controls remain in place. The specific recommendations and progress to date is discussed in more detail under part 2 of the agenda, where members can discuss the detail with the team from Grant Thornton. Now, clearly the fact that this has happened is completely unacceptable and hugely disappointing. And I worked for Knowsley Council for 30 years. She used her position of trust and expertise on the system to steal this money. She lived and worked in Knowsley, one of the most deprived areas in England, and she therefore knew that every pound mattered. There are clearly important lessons to be learnt from this, which we have learnt and will continue to do so. But I am happy to answer any queries that members may have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee? Councillor Ashton?
Thanks. Can I echo the comments James just made, in particular his closing comments? In my view, this is a disgraceful case of betrayal, to be honest, by a long-standing member of staff. I know how this has affected the department, the people who work in this department, and they share that betrayal, I'm sure. It was a very difficult time for everyone concerned, and I'm pleased to say the law finally caught up with her, as did our internal mechanisms to find this problem, and she was sent to prison for 4 years only recently. You can put all the precautions in place, but if you have a person who's hell-bent on defrauding the council, it's difficult for that to prevent. It's sadly in this case it's human nature, but I'm pleased that we've been able to put in place stronger controls, and we've certainly implemented new systems as of this month, and as James has said in the report, it also gives details of how we did that manually prior to the upgraded technology that we've now got in place. I want to thank Grant Thornton for the very in-depth report that they've produced here for us today, and I also want to thank the staff who've had to go through this terrible situation for so long, waiting for the police investigation to to conclude. And I thank them for their patience and for their continued good work on behalf of the residents of Knowsley. Nothing more to add at this point, Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair, Councillor Morgan, I'd like to speak as well, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from Councillor Ash said, I'm absolutely appalled and disgusted at the actions of Karen Kavanagh. She was a long-standing officer within the council, and she used her position, trust that was withheld in the council, and quite rightly said in the report, she knew she was stealing money off people that desperately needed that money within our borough.
Yep.
So I'm absolutely appalled, and I don't think 4 years was enough, because if you look at the sentence, it was half to 2 years, and I presume the way it goes, if you have good behaviour, you could be out after 1 year to 18 months. So I don't think it was a bigger punishment. What I would ask James Duncan, at the officers continually to look at every angle and opportunity to recover last 20% of the money. They've done really well to get to the £280,000, but quite frankly, I don't think that's enough, and every penny should be retrieved if it's possible, and I'd ask the officers to work tirelessly towards that goal. And as Councillor Ashton said, you've got to remember the staff that are being left behind in this. It was quickly established that she was working alone, but the staff must have felt awful, let down. They had to carry on all the hard work. They most probably felt they were under suspicion for long periods of time, but they had nothing to worry about because they've been excellent all the way through this terrible saga. And can I congratulate the staff that were left behind in that team, and the whole of the council staff, because nobody should be tarnished with the same brush because of one individual's greed and as I said, abused their position. So that's all I've really got to say, Chair, because I'm appalled. And maybe just one last thing I'd like to say is that, again, the independent review that we put in straight away, and can I thank Grant Bolton for their excellent investigation and report for the committee here today. But once again, just appeal to the officers to, if they can look at every angle to retrieve the rest of the money. Thank you, Chair.
Jameson, I'd like to speak as well, please.
If I could, Chair, just to reassure Councillor Morgan that we will continue to look at every angle and every opportunity to recoup all of the money that was taken. Obviously, the pension is a good start, takes us 80%, but we will look at every angle to try and recover every single penny that's been taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan.
Hands down, please. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And that report is just for nothing. If we can move on to item 6, which is the Counter Fraud and Internal Audit 2020 to 2021 operational plan, which is on pages 53 to 68. And Karen Hogan will present that report for us. If you could, please, Karen. Thank you.
Chair. This report sets out the revised programme of work for the service and has been adjusted to take account of the COVID pandemic and also the recommendations that have just been referred to, the recommendations made by Grant Thornton. The plan continues to focus on the review of the Council's key financial systems processes and an assessment of any financial risks that the Council might face. The report also outlines the impact of changes to work patterns arising from the COVID pandemic. During Q1, the audit team's work has changed and there's been an increased focus on assisting services with their responses to the COVID pandemic and changes to processes that have been required as a result of the Section 3 gives some background as to how the plan will be developed in response to the COVID pandemic and the extensive work that we've already undertaken to assist in the implementation of the recommendations made by Grant Thornton. Some of the work that we carried out in Q1 is provide Appendix 1 to this report, and then the revised plan for the remainder of the year is set out in Appendix 2. Given the uncertainties with the COVID pandemic, it's going to be important for us to continually review the plan to make sure it addresses the highest risk areas, and if there are any further changes, we will bring a further plan back to the committee for approval. We'll need a agile response to emerging risks, and this has already been demonstrated in terms of new systems that have been introduced in the council. They've introduced new risks. For example, we've received intelligence regarding fraud risk within the business grants processes, but we've built in counter-fraud measures at the start of the process, but there'll also be a need to carry out post-payment checks to detect potential fraud. The revised plan can be split into 3 areas. We've got the key financial systems, the response to the COVID pandemic, and then the more routine audit work that will need to be continued. This will be things like the school audit programme or the work that we do annually on the direct payment accounts run by the council, as this generates additional income for the service. Section 3 provides an assessment of the resources that are available to complete the plan. There's a reduced capacity in the team due to commitments to things like homeschooling, and the way that we're working at the moment is sometimes meaning that our work is taking a little bit longer to complete. And there's also a long-term sickness case in the team. Section 4 provides members of the committee with an update on the ongoing service review, and a further report will be presented to the committee in September outlining the outcomes of that review. So that concludes the presentation of the report. Members of the committee are requested to approve the recommendation at Section 2 of the report, but I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Karen. Do we have any comments from the committee?
No hands raised, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We're happy to follow those recommendations on page 53. Okay, we will move on to item 7, which is the consultation of local government associations, draft models, code of conduct for members, pages 69 to 92, and Gemma Jones will present that report to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The report seeks to bring to your attention a draft model code of conduct which has been produced by the Local Government Association and is currently out for public consultation with a closing date of the 17th of August 2020. The code seeks to address the recommendations of the committee on Standards in Public Life report on local government ethical standards produced in January 2019. As you're aware, we currently has a code of conduct, and section 4 of this report sets out the principal differences between that and the draft model, which can be seen in full at page 72 of the report. Whilst generally positive, it provides clarity and detail in respect of the obligations under the code, which differs potentially from the current code that we have. Suggested responses which we believe should be fed back to the Local Government Association as part of this consultation exercise, and these can be found at Appendix B at page 87 of the report. I'm asking members to approve the recommendations at section 2 of the report, which essentially will enable myself in consultation with yourself, Chair, to submit a response to the Local Government Association reflecting the points in paragraph 4 and Appendix B of this report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Gemma. Do we have any comments or questions from the committee? Okay. Okay. Councillor, I'm going to think that was.
Yeah.
On mute.
Councillor, you're on mute.
To apologise, Chair. Yeah, just welcome the report, Chair. Very comprehensive, and I support the report. Thank you.
Have any okay,
Councillor
Councillor.
Astley.
Sorry, Chair, the leader, he said exactly what I was going to. Nothing more to
Sorry,
add.
Chair.
Just hope that we can conclude the piece of work and send off our submission as soon as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So we have to endorse the recommendations on page 69. Okay. Item is any other items? There are no other items other than very shortly when this meeting finishes, everybody will receive a new invite to move on to the green papers and the confidential papers in section 2. So, I'd like to thank everybody for taking part in this meeting. Congratulations, and we'll see you very shortly. Thank you.